ZEE's D&I Digest. All things diversity, equity and inclusion in one place.
Hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of ZEE's DEI Digest with me, your host Ahalya, where we spark conversation around matters of diversity, equity and inclusion in the workplace here at ZEE. Really excited for today's edition because we're catching up with someone who has made waves in the world of media. With innovation, vision and drive by her side, please welcome Shailja Kejriwal, Chief Creative Special Projects at ZEE Entertainment to the show.
Hi Ahilya, thank you so much. Great to be here.
It's awesome to have you here. Thank you so much for giving us the time. And there is so much to pick your brain about, but let's just start with your journey so far, shall we?
Sure.
Shailja, surely being a woman in media brings many new dimensions to the table. So could you tell us a bit about when you actually decided to pursue a career in media?
Being a storyteller, I'll tell you everything in a story format. I was born and raised in Kolkata in actually a pretty liberal environment. And I came to Bombay when I was very young. And my first impression was that I went to see a shoot. And there was Mr. Amitabh Bachchan shooting something at Nariman Point. And we were all standing over there. And there was like huge crowds and so on. And that was my first experience of seeing a shoot. And it was absolutely near the Land's End. And an HMI light went up and Mr. Bachchan was sitting there. And I was like, this is where I want to be. I decided, this was very young. I was in class 3 or 4 or something like that. And I decided that this is where I want to be. I didn't know how, I didn't know where, I didn't know how does one get into this. As I grew older, I wanted to become an academician. So I went to university, I studied world literature and I thought I would, settle into a very nice teaching or a professorial job at the university. But how you say now, the kida for showbiz was very enticing and I started working in Kolkata with some friends of mine, who were from the Film Institute and so on. And then I realized that, this is what I wanted to do. And I came to Bombay and I came without any apprehensions in a sense. I came wide-eyed because, from ever since I could remember, this is where I wanted to be. So I never really thought about any apprehensions. I just wanted somebody to accept me. That's about it.
That's awesome. So basically the very short answer to this is, when did you decide to pursue a career in media? The answer is when you were in 3rd grade.
Yes.
And I know you said you had no real apprehensions and you came into it wide-eyed, but surely there might have been a few apprehensions about the industry you were entering. It's a very daunting industry.
To be very honest, I don't think I had any apprehensions personally because like I said, if you don't know about an industry, then you don't have any doubts, right? My parents, of course, were like really they were apprehensive, and we come from a Marwari family. My parents, I might have grown up in a liberal environment in school and college, but my parents, come from a traditional Marwari background, and they were like, where is she going and what is going to happen? And for them, it was the big bad Bollywood industry and so on and so forth. But for me, it was like, mujhe bas accept kar le, that's it. I don't know anything. But my parents thought that, once I go there and I'll realize things are pretty different from the way they are in Kolkata, and maybe I'll just come back running in 6 months. But it's been 22 years and I'm still here.
Yeah, as they say, the rest is history. So interestingly, it was more other people's apprehensions and not that many yours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And speaking of the industry itself, how do you think women can move ahead in the media industry while also dealing with gender bias?
So, when we say gender bias, the thing is people only think of women, I think when we look at gender bias, we need to look at it more holistically. The notion of gender bias actually comes from, as early as the history of humankind, where, men were supposed to be hunter-gatherers and the providers, and the women were supposed to be nurturers. And that role play actually decides everything in society from then on till now, so that the men are supposed to be in the provider positions and the women are supposed to be in the nurturing positions, whether it's media or any other industry. So we've come a long way, from where say my mother was or where my grandmother was. We of course have come a long way, but it's the preconceived roles, and which are as debilitating for women as it is for men. Why should the man always need to be the provider? I remember going to college, the boys who took arts and literature were looked upon as, "Arey, ye to kuch nahi karta." So you see, it's not only about the perception of women. We have to look at it holistically. Having said that, I feel that, women need to work work probably harder, unfortunately, to prove themselves to be sort of, capable of doing stuff. But like I say, that you can't think आपकी जीवन काल में आपको आजादी मिल जाएगी, जरूरी नहीं है. My grandmother's struggles made my mother what she was. My mother's struggles made me what I am, and my struggles will make the next generation what they are. So it's such a long tradition of seeing gender roles in a particular manner. It is going to take time.
Very, very comprehensively put. Thank you so much, Shailja. And now that we're actually talking so much about the industry itself, have you noticed in your experience the power that organizations, say like ZEE Entertainment, have to actually contribute to this change in gender norms in the media industry? Is there a specific incident that comes to mind?
I don't think there's a specific incident per se. The fact that ZEE is taking so much of effort, initiatives like this, which are talking to people, is a great start. That is number one. Another thing which is very interesting is that I think that our senior management or very senior management have never really discriminated. And I know at one point there was something that I was very uncomfortable with, and I went and spoke to HR, and I was like, I get these calls at all odd hours of the night from somebody who perceives himself to be my work colleague, etc., etc. And it's very sort of insensitive, and that person was removed that very day. So I'm just saying that like ZEE took such a swift action. I mean, such a swift action that I was even amazed, I thought that, I'm just going to go and say something and then maybe it's going to take a while or whatever. But that person was just removed from my, from my place of work.
And ZEE prioritized a safe workspace over anything.
Absolutely they did. Absolutely they did. And so I was very proud of that. And I was very proud to work in an organization which took such swift action. I just want that more and more people should speak up. And I think the kind of stuff that you guys are doing, this kind of stuff will allow more, women to talk and speak up and air what they really feel rather than just brush it under the carpet. That would be a great start. And I think these kind of initiatives that ZEE is taking on will really go a long way in helping that.
Bang on. Sparking the conversation is always the first step.
Yeah.
Right. And just before we end this wonderful conversation segment that we've got going, I want to ask you, you are a leader in every sense of the word. What do you think the future looks like for young women joining media and the creative field?
The future is extremely bright. I think there are lots of opportunities opening up in the media sector for women. And I think media per se is, also sort of warming up to the fact that women can do roles other than just the softer creative roles. They can do other roles as well. So the future is really bright, as long as whether they are men or women, they work extremely hard. There's no taking away from that.
Right, absolutely. And just the last point before we sign off, do you think there is one specific thing that needs to change, or do you think we're all headed in the right direction?
No, there are lots of things that need to change. The first and foremost thing that needs to change is that gender inequality is not just about women being victims, it's also about the men. And once we start perceiving that, men will become allies and not adversaries.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for all of your very fascinating and comprehensive insights, Shailja. But this was only one part of the conversation. I've got a really fun game on the other side waiting for you, so you have to stay tuned.
Okay.
You're listening to ZEE's D&I Digest, a download of all things diversity, equity and inclusion.
Well, Shailja, now that we've done a deep dive into your career and explored your journey so far, it's time to get personal. Okay, 1 second. It's not as intimidating as it sounds. I've basically got a little rapid fire round for you so that our listeners and I can get to know Shailja, the creative woman, a little better. So are you ready?
No. Tell me.
Seems like you've already got the tone of the rapid fire, right? You're supposed to give us your honest answers. So, okay, question number 1. If you were a color, which one would you be and why?
Red. Passion.
Oh, fantastic. What, in your opinion, is the best thing about being a woman?
We are compassionate and therefore smarter.
Oh, okay. Question number 3. A song that you just never get tired of listening to.
बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं ये धरती ये नदियाँ ये रहना और तुम.
Wow, that is very, very sweet. Okay, next question. A movie that never fails to cheer you up.
Sholay.
Sholay, going with the classics, I see. Okay. Next question. A series that you recently watched and thought, Arey, I wish I had made this one.
Call my agent Bollywood. I would have made it better.
You would have made it better. Okay. We've got a provocateur amidst our presence. One thing that you think every woman or girl needs to learn.
To say no.
Amazing. A habit that you developed in lockdown that you just can't let go of.
Sleeping very, very late.
Oh no, that seems a little bit problematic. Okay, so one thing you love the most about Zee's work culture.
It feels like a family, and it's very warm and it's very personal. And I really love that.
Wonderful. And the celebrity of the moment in your opinion.
Rishabh Pant.
Rishabh Pant. Okay. We're going athletics with this one. All right. And the last question, Shailja. One of the most perfect combinations is known to be sweet and salt. Which one are you?
I think I'm the perfect combination.
Okay. I don't know what you were worried about because you just hit this one out of the park. That was so much fun.
Thank you. I don't know what that makes me sound.
Well, it makes you sound confident, and that's all we can all ask for.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shailja, for giving us your time, your insights, your opinions, and your expertise. It has been wonderful catching up with you today. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Ahilya. It was great talking to you.
This is Zee's D&I Digest.
Well, what a fantastic conversation that has been. I can definitely say that I always learn something new every time I hop onto an edition of Zee's DEI Digest. I assure you though, there's a whole lot more where this came from, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for the next one. In the meanwhile, if you'd like to contribute to the DEI conversation, or if you have any ideas and suggestions, Zee's DEI cell is always listening. Write to them on dei@zee.com. For now, this is me, Ahalya, signing off. Stay safe and stay inclusive.
You were listening to Zee's D&I Digest. All things D&I in one place.